Hello, I've been making videos about our second-hand IONIQ Electric car here in the UK now for about a year. In that time you'll notice that I've never said,
"You should drive an electric car like our IONIQ 2. They're the best thing for the planet, then they smash away all the other competition and nothing else works and there's no other type of car that's good for anyone and stuff."
One of the reasons why I wouldn't say things like that is something that Elon Musk actually reiterated back in January 2019 when he said that electric cars were simply too expensive for most people still. So he was talking about Teslas there, but I think the case also holds for lots of different types of electric car, even our IONIQ Electric, the new Kona, the e-Niro and so on. And I'm going to use a tool here to talk about my own experience of going through a LEAF, our IONIQ, and thinking about Teslas, the Model S and the Model 3, based on kind of ability to buy one and willingness to buy an electric car. Electrical efficiency. Zero tailpipe. So I think because of the expectations around the, elusive $35,000 Tesla Model 3, this issue has been coming up again in some media outlets. And this was particularly true after Elon Musk's email. He was explaining to his staff that while they've made great progress, their products, Tesla products, are still too expensive for most people. So how do you actually work this out? Whether an electric car is too expensive for someone, working it out if it's too expensive for myself. I'll go through a sort of way of thinking about it that actually I was taught by an economist friend of mine, and we'll see where we get with it. So the first issue is a kind of vertical axis of ability to pay. So this is when you just can't afford something in the red up to when you begin to be able to afford it, shown here in the green. And then the second axis is, your willingness to pay for something. And this could be where it doesn't have the features that you need. And in the case of an electric car, where it does. So that could include, the range of the electric car, the size or the shape of it, and the type of charging that it's got, whether it's kind of standard 50 kilowatt charging or even supercharging. Now, we know in the UK from figures from various sources that, the average that people spend on a new car is 26 to 33,000. So that's the kind of affordability point there. And that's it in dollars and in euros. Now, on a monthly lease, that means most people who are financing a car are paying £225 per calendar month, and that's equivalent in dollars and euros to the figures shown here. But more often people are buying a used car, and in that case they're paying £10,000 to £15,000 for the car. And again, this is shown the equivalent in dollars and in euros. So we can work out this kind of ability to pay line. The kind of threshold of the willingness to pay line is a bit more confusing because it's far more subjective, and it's about, what's right for you, and it's very difficult for me to tell you that and for you to, kind of convince me what you need. So what we're looking for then is a car going into this green zone where you're willing and able to pay for it. So let's start then with my experience of the Nissan LEAF in the UK, and my first experience of it was actually the Japanese Generation 1 that had slightly less range and slightly different features to the later 24 kilowatt hour and 30 kilowatt hour LEAFs. All I really got out of that test drive with a not particularly enthusiastic dealer about that model was that the car existed. Electric cars exist and you can drive them. It would do 70 miles an hour on a motorway. When I asked the dealer about the price on that, and I had a Nissan Note at the time, whether I could sort of trade up or what the numbers would be, he just basically broke off the conversation and said, oh no, it would be too expensive, and didn't go any further than that. So sometime later, we had like an extended test drive on a Nissan LEAF, and then eventually ended up going for one. I think we put down £3,000 deposit, and then we're paying about £300 a month for that. So that's, not affordable according to the average, but at the time it was affordable to us because we were prepared to do that. The range was explained quite carefully to us by a dealer as, don't expect more than 75 miles, otherwise you could get into trouble. So if your commute is within that, or if you have charging at work, it'll work for you. But particularly as I think the battery was starting to degrade after 3.5 years of having that car on a lease, it was getting more and more difficult. So actually it was kind of sliding out of the kind of willingness zone, and I was a bit resentful of paying the money I was paying per month for something that was quite limiting for me and my family really getting around. Similar kind of weird test drive experience with the Hyundai IONIQ. I think I first went and tried one in January 2017, and the dealer I think had been kind of thrashing it with other people. It had been driven in sport mode most of the time, so the range on it was showing about 100 miles, slightly less than that, slightly less than the sort of 160 kilometers. So I didn't think it was that much of a leap up from our LEAF at the time. Little did I know, but from what I had experience of in the test drive. And then when we came to talk numbers after coming back from the test drive, they were quoting something like £450 per calendar month for a lease and a minimum term of 4 years. And I just, was not interested, with a high deposit as well, actually. So I wasn't interested in that. So, even though the IONIQ had kind of it was on the edge of the things I was willing to accept. It looked a bit more capable, and I liked the kind of performance at motorway speeds, at highway freeway speeds. But it didn't seem to have the kind of range, and the price, you know, was sort of taking it back. A year later, sort of December 2017, coming into January 2018, I saw a second-hand UK IONIQ Electric for £20,000 at a dealer in Wales, and that kind of brought it then into an acceptable zone for me. So it took it into the green, and the rest is kind of history of, you know, I've been YouTubing about years since. Of course, like my own experience actually of going for a used car rather than a new electric car, the kind of sweet spot of ability to pay is actually in the second-hand electric cars in the UK, like Renault Zoes that you get from about £7,500, or perhaps even some cheaper, used Nissan LEAFs, used BMW i3s, that kind of thing. Used IONIQs I think are still going around about the 20,000 mark because they're just popular. So using the kind of same thinking then to think about Tesla's models that are available in the UK. So the Tesla Model S, I mean, I've test driven them twice, I think. The first time was just such an impressive experience. I was incredibly taken with the car, the way it handled, the power and various things. It was a rear-wheel drive 85 kilowatt hour Tesla Model S, but it was still, I thought it was really great. At the time they were going, I think, new at about £45,000 to £50,000, and you could get one or two used a bit cheaper than that. As I looked as of today, the cheapest one in the UK used was about £50,000. You can get them around about £40,000 occasionally, older models. But to buy one new, because since Tesla has discontinued the smaller battery pack sizes, so you have to get the dual motor 100 kilowatt hour one, you're looking at £90,000 currently in the UK. Where I live in the north of England in the UK, you could buy a house, a 2-bedroomed or 3-bedroomed house for £90,000. So, you know, a Tesla Model S new in the UK at the moment, the current model range that they have, is the price of a house. The Tesla Model 3, when it's coming to the UK, I know deliveries have started now in Europe, but it's predicted that it will only be the dual motor long range battery pack, or the performance long range battery pack. So the cheapest model there is estimated to be at least kind of £51,000. So again, this goes out of the ability for me to pay and the average kind of car buyer in the UK to pay, even though I might be willing to because of the technology, the autopilot, the amazing supercharging network that makes it just so convenient to travel all around the UK and beyond. But it's just not in the green zone and not for your average person, and probably not for many people, unfortunately. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments, using these kind of, ability and willingness to pay for something, and then whether it ends up affordable or not with these electric cars. How do your own kind of decisions around this stack up? And if you've held off on getting an electric car for whatever reason, is this kind of one of the reasons in terms of, it doesn't have the features that make you willing to get it, or it's not at the price point that you're able to get it? Just let me know. I'd be interested to hear. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you'd like to, and bye for now.